It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
Hey guys, how is it going? And welcome to the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. It's Friday, May 26th, and so happy for you joining us, and we are ready to start another day together with the Lord. So subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. So we have an exciting podcast for you today on this wonderful Friday. We have Until the End Mental Health Podcast with Daniel Baker, the Wednesday Message Word Study, and of course, commentaries, updates, and news on what is happening around the world in this history today. All right, everyone, how are you doing? Yes, it is Friday. The weekend is here, and I'm sure that many of you are excited to, start this weekend on a good note. For me, since I record this Friday podcast on Thursday afternoon over here in the Western countries, my official weekend starts on Thursday afternoon, which is kind of cool. I get Fridays and Saturdays off, but for me it's a little bit early, but I really enjoy this time here. So I hope you guys are having an awesome Friday. Well, Friday's just starting for a lot of you, so have a wonderful and awesome weekend that starts today. If you haven't yet, go ahead, leave a like or a comment to build our community. Just really happy for everyone joining us each and every day and leaving your comments, your likes, and everything else like this. And just really happy that we're able to get up and support each other in each and every way. Loving how this community is growing more and more. We have over 1,100 subscribers at the moment, which is not the most important thing because, this is for members of our church, you know what I mean? And it's for English-speaking members. Well, obviously, because if you can't understand English, there's no way you'd be listening to this anyways. But I'm very thankful that we're able to grow this channel together, right? And, this channel doesn't grow without you guys too, okay? So it is a wonderful Friday. Hope you guys are enjoying your week as summer is summer is coming. For us over here in the Northern Hemisphere, summer, I think it starts, usually for us over here, summer's probably going to start in June for us, which is a week away right now. Guys, June 1st is next Thursday, which is so close. And, in Vancouver, it is awesome. I'll tell you guys some cool things about Vancouver. When you hit the summer, the weather's about 24, 25 degrees Celsius. It's not humid, really nice, and considered one of the most beautiful cities in the world. You guys got to come visit here if you can. And during the summertime, guess when the sun goes down? The sunset is 9:30 p.m., which means there's light until 10:45. That's how crazy the weather is here during the summertime. Of course, in the wintertime, it's the opposite. Sun goes down at 4 p.m., right? But summertime, awesome. 9:30 p.m. is when the sun sets, and you can be out all day chilling at a cafe. The weather's really nice too. I would say this is probably one of the best weathers in the world, right? San Diego is really nice too, considered the best weather in the world right now. But the summer in Vancouver is the best because it's long days. You get to stay out really late at the beach, go out to a outdoor cafe, whatever it is. And you're going to be out there till 10 p.m. and it's still bright outside. I'm going to leave some posts when the sun goes down really late. I'll be like, look what time it is, guys. And I'm just chilling at my house in my back lawn or whatever it is. And you're going to see oh, wow, it's really nice. So I'm telling you guys right now, if you're ever going to visit Vancouver, come around June, July, and half of August. You guys will love it. Yes, I am working for Vancouver Tourism. No, I'm just kidding. But I would definitely recommend if there's people out there who want to come and visit, just give me a call. I'll definitely, take you around with the time that I have too. All right. Tomorrow, we have a new video. It's not going to be a music video. It's not going to be Provi. It's actually going to be poetry again. Remember last time we had from Australia, Chris did a video poem. And a lot of people really enjoyed that too. And tomorrow we're also going to have a video poetry. And this is from New Zealand. I guess that Oceania region has really good people who think and make poetry. But this is Melanie from New Zealand, so I hope you guys will enjoy this. This is a really deep poem that's kind of about the situation we're going through right now, but giving support and love for to the Lord and such, right? So everyone, take a listen. That's tomorrow's video poetry. And if you guys are anyone else out there who likes poetry, And maybe you don't want to do a video, it's not really a video poetry. It's a video. They'll put a picture up and there'll be lyrics in there. But if you guys are someone really, really good at poetry, or you really like to do poetry, you don't have to read it yourself. You can get someone else to read it for you. But, of course, I'll definitely play this. I'll play your poetry or whatever you want in poetry or spoken word. Whatever it is, you guys just contact me and I'll definitely post it up for you guys too. Okay. Yesterday, yes, I'm sorry. There's been a little bit of a mix-up. Provi Puff did not come out yesterday. A little bit of an issue on the video, so we're going to post it today instead. So the prayer podcast went for Thursday, and tomorrow's going to be Provi Puff. Very thankful for everyone who's contributing. And those of you guys, if you have any other episodes that you would like to post, like, I would love to do a segment on this, I would love to hear it too. Right? So very thankful for everyone's understanding that we had to make a quick switch for Provi Puff and Prayer Podcast this week, but thankful for all of you for being patient. Now, okay, so this is kind of interesting because I was listening to the radio yesterday. Well, I listened to the radio because I'm not sure why I listened to the radio. Well, I don't know. It's because when I'm driving my parents' car, the radio's always on. You're always listening to like the traffic news and stuff like that also, but I listened to a sports channel. And I heard a saying that this person on the on this radio show was doing, and I totally understood it, but I was like, wow, this is totally a generational phrase or saying that I bet you most of you outside of North America and born into the mid 90s would never understand, right? And basically they said this saying was, his face was on a milk carton. Right? You're like, what the heck is that? His face was on a milk carton. What does that mean? So I don't know. Any of you guys out there know what that means? His face was on a milk carton? Does anyone else know what it is? I don't know if it's like, is it just a Canadian or American thing? I think it's a North American thing. But those of you guys who don't know, it's a total old school saying from my generation. And I can't believe this person said it on the radio. But it was like, when I heard it, I was like, I understand what that means, right? Because back in my days, right, when I was in elementary school, we would, buy these small cartons of milk, individually packaged cartons of milk, and it's made of like thick paper, right? That's what the carton's made out of. It's not plastic like what you buy today. It's made out of thick, like carton. It's like it's kind of like not cardboard, but it's like pressed paper. It's really, really thick, right? But what they would do on these milk cartons is they would put pictures of missing children on the milk carton box, right? So that people will be aware that this is a missing child, and if you see this person, go ahead and call the police, whatever it was. So back in my days, they would say things like, man, I hope this person's face would be on a milk carton, which basically meant we hope this person would be gone, right? Because, only missing children. So sometimes you didn't like someone, you'd be like, oh, I wish this person's face was on a milk carton, meaning you wish that, that they wouldn't even be there kind of thing, right? And in sports today, for my generation, let's just say there's a really, really good hockey or basketball player, and they're playing a game, and then they'll say something like, the end of the game, they'll say, today his face was on a milk carton, which just means that this person was non-existent. They were playing, but they were missing from the game. They didn't contribute anything. So they'll say things like, oh, today he was playing, but his face was on a milk carton, which means that he wasn't playing very well, kind of thing. So it was kind of interesting because when I was listening to this on the radio, I was like, man, there's like 3 generations that have passed since my generation, right? Because I'm Generation X, I believe. Y or X? I think I'm Generation X, right? Because I'm 1978. And, Gen Z, millennials came, Gen Z, and now it's Gen Alpha, which is really nuts to me. And, I was thinking about, man, what, these newer generations, what's so different about them? I was like kind of comparing what my generation's way more conservative, way more, right? Like, for instance, in this generation right now, 50% divorce rate did not exist in my generation. People did not divorce. They didn't. It was frowned upon so much. People rarely divorce, where today, divorce is like normal, right? 50%, 51 or 52% of couples divorce within the first 2 years, right? This generation, not many people marry. Not many people have children, right? And in my generation, you were encouraged to have many children. And having children out of wedlock or like having children before getting married, it was something you would never see. Like even in my high school, it would be so taboo. Like this is, I'll tell you like how crazy it was. In my high school, it was rare for someone to have a baby in high school, and it was rare for people to be like, like having like sex and stuff in high school, right? It wasn't as big, it's not as normal as it is today. People have way more tattoos. Like tattoos were totally frowned upon in my generation. It was only for real gangsters. If you had them, people were scared of you kind of thing. Like, oh my gosh, they have tattoos kind of thing. Now it's like just a normal thing that everyone has. Like when I go to the gym to work out, I see like girls, guys alike, they all have tattoos on their calves, on their shoulders, on their chest, everywhere. They have tattoos. My generation, there were no tattoos. Zero. Even for me, I frown upon them. I'm just like, because that's my generation kind of thing. Like, why would you get that? Like back in my, in my generation, it was hard to get a job if you had a tattoo, because it meant that you had indiscretion, right? Indiscretion if you had a tattoo, right? So then, employers usually wouldn't hire someone with a tattoo. And that's just my generation. And I would say probably one of the biggest things about this generation, like millennials, Gen Z, and Alpha probably coming up, is the social skills are terrible in this newer generation. Just terrible, right? Everything's about texting. Like, when I was young, I feel like such an old man when I was younger, when I was back in my days. I feel like I sound like an old grumpy grandpa, whatever it is, right? You can call me Grumps. But when I was younger, we had no cell phones. There was no such thing. They didn't even exist. We actually had a house phone, so you had to make calls from your home. And they were all like a line connected to the house. There was no such thing as like wireless phones, right? Or you had to go to a pay phone, right? And pay phones are really rare even these days, where you go to a pay phone, you put in 25 cents, and then you can call someone for like 2 minutes or something along that line. Because, there's internet didn't exist back in my day. And actually in my days, okay, this you younger generation will never understand this. We had a pager, okay? And you guys might not understand what a pager is. Those of you, I don't know, how many of you out there actually had a pager, right? It's kind of funny because it's this small box, really, really small. It's like the size of like a credit card, but it's kind of thicker, has got a clip on it. And all you can do is leave numbers, right? So what would happen is someone would call your pager and leave a number, right? And then when you get paged, it means that's a number you should call. Someone wants to call you. Someone wants to talk to you. And you only give your pager number out to people that you know. So that's when you get someone pages you, you know that it's like someone you know, okay? And they'll leave their phone number. So, let me give an example. My parents wanted to talk to me, but there's no cell phones. I'm out with my friends. They'd page me, leave the house number, and then, of course, I would go to a pay phone, pay 25 cents, and call my parents, right? And that's what a pager did, because there was no such thing as a cell phone back then. And we would even have special codes too. Like a friend would call, and you would text them, and not text. They would page you, and sometimes they'd leave a 99 at the end. So it'd be like the phone number -99, and 99 meant good night, right? You had 911. We know that's emergency services. If someone leaves their phone number -911, it means it was an emergency. You got to call right away. Right? So we had this, it was a pager. I spent almost all my days as a child unplugged. Unplugged. There was no iPads. There was no internet. There was no cell phones. And for me, like, playing wasn't a video game. Playing was going out, riding bikes, like for hours, playing at the park, going through the forest, riding my bike all day, and just playing at the play. It was all like climbing trees, playing with bugs. It was a completely different life. And personally, I think it's way better than what it is right now. I really do. Right? Kids these days, staying inside on a computer, on the internet, on their phones, I don't think it's healthy. It's not. I don't think it's good for kids to be staying and being like sedentary, like just staying in one spot. They got to run around. You got to play. You got to, play sports, do things with actively with your body. But that's what I did. I remember so many times just taking my bike and getting my first mountain bike, and we would like ride the bike through the forest. I would fall over. So many things would happen. And me and my brother and friends, we'd just take our bikes and ride fast everywhere and stuff. It was super dangerous, but that's what we do. We wouldn't like drive a car somewhere. We just ride our bikes. There's no scooters, nothing electric. You have to put energy in. Right? I don't know if I'm just being old-fashioned, but that's just my generation. I think it's a better generation in that sense when it comes to that, right? And definitely this generation, I think, is way more sensitive. And now I'm not going to say that it's not always a bad thing. Of course, it's not always a bad thing, but it definitely makes life a little bit more difficult because generation is sensitive to words, which is really weird for me. Yeah, like, why would you be so sensitive to words? Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you said that. They said this to me. Like, I can't stand it, right? If like, like, of course words are hurtful. I understand that. But, we're not that sensitive to it and start protesting and stuff. Like, that's, for me, that's some of it is ridiculous, I think. That's just me. Old grumps. You can call me that from now on, grumps, right? You know what? That'd be kind of cool. Let's make a thread for today's podcast. Put down what generation you are. Like, are you a millennial? Usually it's like the 1980s to the mid 90s, like 81 to 96. Gen Z is like 97 to 2012. And then, of course, like the newest generation is Generation Alpha, which you're probably not going to be listening to this podcast. It's after 2013, 2013 and beyond. But think about that, guys. Are you millennial, Gen Z? Me, I'm Gen X, I believe. I think I'm Gen X. And we are 1975, 76 to 1980, around there, something like that. So, put in your generation. I would love to hear your thoughts on like, how different the generation is compared to the new one. Like even millennials. Like millennials are different than Gen Z. Millennials, I would love to hear what millennials think of Gen Z. And I would love to hear Gen Z on what they think of the older generations too. And this is just my personal opinion. I'm not saying you guys are all terrible people, stuff like that too. It's just a different generation. Some things that I don't think are good for people. It's not good for people in general to have some of these qualities. Like, think about divorce and all these different things. Yeah, it's crazy how different everything has changed, right? And tattoos too. It's just my generation. We never had it. You guys might have one too, right? Even before coming to Providence, whatever it is. Yeah, and it's understandable because that's kind of like the culture in that generation. I just talked to I got my hair cut the other day. My hairdresser, she is millennial. No. Yeah, she's millennial. And she was saying the same thing as like, yeah, I have a couple tattoos, but she's getting them lasered off now. She doesn't want them anymore, right? So it's interesting to hear about this. That's why I was kind of bringing up tattoos too. Either way, yeah. Oh, also, I had a really, I was really inspired yesterday. I had a call from a friend of mine. They are not in Providence. They left, but they want to come back. And when I talked to this person, this is someone I really deeply care about too. Someone I hung out with, lived with for a little bit too when I was visiting their country and stuff. And just listening to them, it made me think a lot more deeply. Right? I kind of talked about this before. It's like if someone left, they could have done some terrible things against its history, whatever it is. Let's say some people even might slander and such, right? And let's just say they wanted to come back. Like, how would you feel? Like, what would be your reaction? And for me, my reaction is straight from the Backstreet Boys. That's my reaction is, I don't care who you are, where you're from, what you did, as long as you love, like of course not love me, but of course loving God. But still, I would be total Backstreet Boys on this. Is like, yeah, I would be perfectly fine with it. I would hang out with them still. And if they made some mistakes, I understand, because a lot of people make mistakes, and sometimes when we're younger, we do make mistakes that we really regret. But you can correct them. Mistakes are made to be corrected, and you can apologize, repent, and move forward with it too, right? And for me, I would just want them to know, like for me, my biggest message to them was, this is how much God loves you. And this is how much God wants you back. because that's how great God's love is, right? So God loves people so much to the point that he would sacrifice the person he loves the most so you can live. And that's, if that's not enough of a sign of how much God loves everyone, then I'm not sure what else God can do to show us this is how much I love you. Right? Now, of course, is it going to be easy to come back? And I think that process is just as hard for that person to make up their mind to come back again. It's not going to be easy, right? Like, think about this. What about, I think some people might have the reaction like people had to Paul. Paul was someone persecuting and killing believers. So can you imagine what people were thinking when Paul decided to become a Christian? I'm sure a lot of people didn't trust him right away, right? And I'm going to say it's totally understandable. Because, humans don't trust right away in the beginning, especially if they've been betrayed, right? Like, think about it. If your husband or wife cheats on you, even though you take them back, it's not like you trust them right away with everything as you did before, but you would trust them with just basic things. And I think that would be fair. In the beginning, trust them with basic things. And as they prove themselves more and more, you trust them with more and more things, right? And it's not very easy for people to come back, but I personally like to give people the benefit of the doubt, and I think that's the main thing for us in this history, to be good people who love with God's heart, right? To just love each other, right? And this week's message said, put down your authority, take care of each other, love each other, and I think I'm going to call this the Backstreet Boys love. I don't care who you are. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's my generation. This is the Backstreet Boys love, right? So I'm hoping that everyone, as this time comes, and like I'll tell you right now, I'm going to prophesy already. When things settle down at the end of the year and everything is settled, there's going to be people that come back, right? And, we shouldn't be the ones that feel like, oh my gosh, look at them. They left when it was the hardest and now they're coming back when everything's easy again. No, you should never think that way. No one knows what everyone's going through, right? No one knows. And that's why we have to be those that understand more deeply, right? That, we got to have that empathy for these people and just love them with the love that God has, right? Like I said last week, it's like the prodigal son. The father's so happy to see the lost son. It says, my son was lost, but now is found. He was dead, but now he's alive. And he did a huge celebration for him too. So this is God's heart. Okay. So yeah, that I was really inspired by that too, just to see people looking at the situation and then understanding, I got to come back. Right? I want to come back. I feel bad. I feel sorry, but I want to come back. And I think that is inspiring too. And that's a sign of God's love also. All right. Yeah. So I'm gonna have a great weekend. I really am. I'm excited for this weekend too, and I don't even have anything planned. Oh, actually, sorry, it's my dad's birthday on Sunday, so we are going out for dinner with my dad, and me and my brother decide to buy my dad some sunglasses, right? And he needs it because he had cataract surgery on his left eye, I believe. So he needs some good sunglasses. He uses like these cheesy, like $10 sunglasses from 7-Eleven. And my mom's like, no, he needs some nice sunglasses. So we got to get him some nice ones too, so that my dad can be rocking a nice pair and look good too. Either way. So that's what I'm going to do this weekend. So I'm going to have a great time. And of course, the weather's nice. I love it now because I don't need to turn on the heater at night anymore. But man, hey, it's the 26th today, guys. Like I said before, like the very beginning, June 1st is next Thursday, which is crazy. That's the middle of the year. We're going to be in the middle of the year next week. I'm so thankful this year is passing by so much quicker. But of course, June 1st is Alpha Day. I'm very curious of how we're going to celebrate Alpha Day this year. But one of the things that really caught me from the message is when Steve talks about letting the older generation should let the new generation know, teach them about how this history began. And when I thought about this, I do think it's a very good time to remember how this history started. As for myself, being the older generation, we've heard about Alpha Day so many times. But it's also, you realize even more how much we need to keep reminding ourselves about this great day when history started, right? Like even when you look at the Old Testament, what does God's, the greatest moment in the Old Testament was Passover, the day when God set the Israelites free from slavery in Egypt. And that was something you celebrated for a week. Like you celebrated, and the older generation would tell the story of Passover, of how God saved them, the 10 plagues and Moses and all these other different things. And it was to remind people to remember how great the miracle God did for the Israelites. And this is how we keep it in our hearts. Because, think about it. If you haven't talked about it for an entire year, you're not going to remember it. We need to remember, right, what God did for us. And the more we keep hearing it, the more we remember. And that's why repetition is the habit of success, right? And, just as, like the human mind is powerful, we remember a lot of things and we can do amazing things with our mind, but we also have to remember how fragile and weak our brains are at the same time, right? So in the past, sometimes I'd complain like, oh, this story again, the same story over and over. But as you go through life, you'll realize, sometimes you forget details. You forget the story. Like you only know the general parts about it, and you need to hear it over and over again, right? We need to hear it to the point we know it inside out. Like think about this, Alpha Day is coming around the corner, but how many of you, if I were to tell you right now on the spot, tell me about Alpha Day, how many of you could talk about it in detail or even talk about it in the most inspiring way? Sometimes we just hear it, but, more than hearing it, we need to know it that well. And I hope that we can have a very, very good Alpha Day this year. It's next week. That this year that we can have a great Alpha Day and be reminded of that story and really take it to heart that this is how this history began. It's not a small thing, right? We're going to hear so many, we're going to hear details again that we forgot about, and we're going to get re-inspired by it. So everyone, let's prepare well and really celebrate this time. Like even when Sunsim is where he is right now, this is a time where we have to celebrate even more, right? To support him that much better. And I hope it's something that all of us can do together at this time. All right. All right. So let's get into our first break for today.
Turn the lights down low, 'cause we don't even have to go outside no more. Where the rain is pouring and it's thundering outside. When your love goes cold, even if you feel like you're all by yourself, I'm with you always. I'm not leaving by your side. Rain or shine, I don't mind, 'cause I will always find you. Sometimes I wanna hide, but you will always find me. So let's meet in the middle. So let's meet in the middle. Yesterday is gone, look at what we made. There's still more to go, don't let your love fade. You're always in my heart, always within reach. Stormy skies are clearing, stormy hearts are calling. Keep going like you tell us, until the end you teach us. Change yourself and make yourself great every day. If you rise above your problems, then you'll change your fate. But I don't gotta worry, 'cause I'll never be late. Rain or shine, I don't mind, 'cause I will always find you. Sometimes I wanna hide, but you will always find me. So let's meet in the middle. So let's meet in the middle. Rain or shine, I don't mind, 'cause I will always find you. Sometimes I wanna hide, but you will always find me. So let's meet in the middle. So let's meet in the middle.
All right, so let's get into today's second section, which is the word study. And of course, every Friday we do go over the Wednesday message. And I like the Wednesday messages because it allows the leaders to take the Sunday message and make it into something that is like more geared towards their church, the things that they're going through, or something that, that is done in a style or done in a way where the people in their country, their church will understand it a lot better. I really, really enjoyed the Wednesday message this week, and the introduction was really good. It talked about, like this week's message is about realizing God more deeply, right? This is one of the things through taking action. Don't just listen, take more action, and then realize God more deeply. But if we want to realize about God more deeply, we need to understand how to learn properly, right? And this kind of goes in what I said in the first segment, which is repetition. Repetition is success, right? You need to learn over and over and over again, right? We got to repeat, learn, practice, and then we become knowledgeable. We become skillful. We become people that are able to do it. In a much more proficient way, right? So the big question I thought was good is, are you exposing yourself enough to the word, right? And that's a good question we can be asking ourselves is, are we taking the word seriously, or do we just listen to it on Sunday and then we're done? Right? We just listen to it, we wake up, half asleep during the pre-dawn. We kind of listen to it and then we're done with it. We don't think about anything else during the rest of the day. And I think that's a good question for all of us to think about is, are you exposing yourself enough to the word? Right? Like, is it enough? Like we have so much word. It doesn't mean go over every single thing. But like even I think for the pre-dawn, I think a very, very, very good exercise is not to just listen to the pre-dawn and then close it up and we're done. And I'm not going to say go to the extent like every day have a word study group and go over the pre-dawn proverbs together. I'm not even going to say that. I would even say like, hey, there's not that many proverbs that come every morning, but why don't you just pick one? Pick one of them that you're kind of inspired by or you really want to know more deeply about, and let that be the proverb of the day where you can think about it, you can contemplate, you can think about, I wonder why Sunseam said this, right? And this is where we're able to expose ourselves enough to the word, which in turn, when we realize it more deeply, it allows us to put it into action, right? And a second point that was made in the introduction I thought was good too is sometimes, we're kind of, the term used was a kind liar, right? What does it mean, a kind liar? And this is, we're all good at being kind liars, right? Which means that we think we're okay. Like we thought, oh, no, I'm doing okay. But you got to honestly check yourself and evaluate yourself well. Don't be a kind liar just saying, yeah, everything's okay. I'm okay, right? And we have to be those that are kind of real with ourselves. And I think that's one of the things that we have to, that we talked about maybe last week about maturity. Sometimes people aren't self-aware or they don't want to deal with it. And that's why we need people to hold us accountable. And that's why it's good for us to have these honest checks with ourselves, right? Are you being a kind liar to, oh, no, it's okay, everything's going to be fine. And a lot of times it's not fine, right? And that's why we really, really need to get ourselves and become realistic and honest of checking ourselves and knowing what we're doing and who we are, right? And of course, this all leads to like, if you want to check yourself really well, remember I talked about, was it last week I talked about tribulation illuminates your motivation, right? And that's something that I really think is a very, very important thing we have to check ourselves is right now at this time when it's most difficult, what is driving you? What is your motivation right now? Why do you do it, right? Because, we know that some people might just be here just to make people happy. Just so no one looks down, you're self-conscious, you don't want anyone to look at you in a bad way. And some people are just doing it just for that. But we know that's not going to sustain you, right? Some of you, some people who are younger, they're doing it because their parents want you to come to church. And if you keep that as your motivation, it's not going to be enough, especially when you become independent, right? And one thing we do have to kind of bring ourselves to the point is, when will you get to the point when you're doing something because you truly love God? Like you truly love God. And that's the point we want to get to. Yes, our motivations might be different along the way. So one thing Sunseam said is like, even when people come to Providence in the first 3 years, people come for different reasons. in the first 3 years, and you need to get rid of those reasons. Not rid of it. You have to change those reasons to the right one. So, for instance, Sunseem even said that some people might come to Providence in the beginning because they like a girl. It's possible. Some people just want power. Some people just want to be in a community. There's a lot of different reasons why people first come to Providence. Oh, this girl's so pretty. I want to come because of them, right? However, God gives you freedom for the first 3 years, but by 3 years, you need to be able to realize, why am I really doing this? And it has to be out of that true love, right? Remember, when God brings us to this history, how many of us were coming because, I'm just so in love with God. I have to learn this. I have to learn it because I love God that much. And the answer is, it's such a small percentage that are actually doing it like that from the very beginning. A lot of us come for different reasons. A lot of us come just for comfort. A lot of us come because they feel better coming to church. There's so many reasons why we come in the beginning, right? I'm going to tell you, one of the first reasons why I came to not because I came to Providence, but why I came back to faith is because I wanted to find a girlfriend. Never had a girlfriend in high school, right? And I was just like, this is my time. This is my time. Now I'm second year university. I should find a girlfriend, right? Where are the best people to find good girls? It's in church. And that's one of the reasons that compel me to go to some type of church. As weird as that sounds. Is it the wrong reasoning? Absolutely. But God used that mindset that I had, the thing that I wanted, and it brought me to this history I learned. And of course, it switches to loving God, right? So we need to reach that point where we come out of true love. And that's the only way we're going to sustain ourselves. If we have any other reason besides loving God deeply, then this is where we feel unmotivated. This is when we feel like, it's not enough. What's Providence history anyways, right? Because love never gets tired, but other reasonings, they get tired. They have like a shelf life, right? And in order for us to keep going this history forever and ever, it has to be that love between us and God, right? And one of the things that Sunseem talked about this week is about the pre-dawn time. Like, God is the pre-dawn. It's a very, very interesting concept when it's God is the pre-dawn, right? And we have to look at it as waking the pre-dawn is meeting with God. Right? And this, why should we do this? Well, not only because it's good for us, but it's the words of God's word for each and every one of us as individuals is wake the pre-dawn. That's what God wants for every single one of us. It's not a general saying. He is specifically telling each of you individually, now is time to get back up for the pre-dawn. Right? It's God's word. If you truly believe it's the history of God and we're hearing the words of God, if our faith, if we have that faith, it should be enough for us to do it. If we have that faith, right? Wake the pre-dawn, right? And this is for us individually. And the pre-dawn is basically such an important time between us and God that when you pray at the pre-dawn time, God will grant your requests. But if you don't wake up at the pre-dawn, you can actually incur losses if you don't come, right? So we need to have that heart, right? So, we have to have that heart to realize, wow, this is the pre-dawn time. It is God. If you love God, you'll love the pre-dawn. Is it easy? Absolutely not, right? Even for someone like me after 25 years of pre-dawn, it's not that easy, right? It's still not that easy, right? So I hope that all of us too can wake the pre-dawn. We'll get the answers at pre-dawn. God is there at the pre-dawn more than any other time. He's waiting for us, right? And think about that. Imagine we are the ones making God lonely or sad, has that heartache because he was waiting for us at pre-dawn, but we don't get up, right? Where it's that person that loves you that deeply. So, it's if you think about it in the, say more in a human sense or a physical sense, just imagine the person you love with all your heart. Would you miss meeting that person if you loved them that much? And we would, when it comes to something physical, be like, oh man, if it was someone I really, really love, or even someone I have a crush on, you'd be there early. Right? And that's what we have to kind of realize in our hearts. That fire must be lit in our hearts for us to be at pre-dawn, to pray for our country, to pray for our churches, pray for the Sunseem, the situation that's going on right now. Right? So I hope it's, I really like that introduction. And I hope it's something that all of us can push ourselves towards. Right? So the first one of the first points of this week's message was talking about living for the purpose. And of course, we know the purpose. It is to become the counterparts of love to God and the Holy Trinity and to live together. It's like this having that absolute love. But I think when you look at the prayer that Sunseem gave, he was wondering so much about why do people derail? Why do they leave this path? Even when they've been here for so, like, think about that. Some of the people that we know that are no longer here anymore, they've been in this history like longer than I have, right? And then, I brought this up on Monday is, did they not live with all their heart, will, and life, right? But the answer is, did they live with all their heart, will, and life according to the purpose taught? Not for their own purpose, but according to the purpose taught, right? And, we're going to know this properly by actions, which doesn't mean that we're not going to see everyone's action in every day of their life, but you'll see the eventual action, right? Once we see the actions, we will properly know and believe, right? And actions is two things. Like, even for ourselves, if you want to know how much you love God, look at your actions. Your actions will tell you how much you believe, what your faith is like, right? And in the same way, too, when you look at others, the actions are the most telling thing, right? If someone says to me that, oh, no, this is totally not like this, but then their actions are saying different, then for me, I can't trust the words. I have to trust the actions more than the words, right? And, it was interesting. The head leader that was preaching at this time brought up some Hebrew words. And the Hebrew word for believe is emunah, right? Emunah or emunah, something like that, right? And the word for believe in Hebrew is much different than the English. The English is something like something you hope for. I believe in something, right? But the Hebrew word, emunah, is you know something to be true, so true to the point it's your reality. And you have no choice but to act on it because you fully trust it. There is no other way but that one. That is the word in Hebrew for believe, right? Emunah, right? It's like knowing the future. Imagine you know the future and imagine you take a time machine, you come back in the past and you know the next numbers for the lotto. You know so clearly that you would go and buy that ticket right away. You know what I mean? That's how much you would know. You're like, wow, that is belief, right? And for us too, we have to understand that this is what we need to be at that level where we know, right? We believe so much to the point it is reality that you have no choice but to act on it, right? And we're asked to believe. We're asked to have faith. We're asked to know that this is God's history, right? And it's not asked blindly. We went through the word. We saw miracles. We saw the actions. We see the things, the miracles that happen in our life. So when people say to you, why are you so blind to your faith? And the answer is we're not blind to our faith. God doesn't ask us to be blind to our faith. God asks us, why? Because we heard the word. We see the reality. We see the what Sunseem has done. We see Providence history, what has happened over the last 45 years. And that's why we have confidence in this history. And that's why we can truly say we believe, right? We're not asked to believe for no reason. We're asked to believe and have faith. And we have every reason to, right? It's just the same thing. Like what happens is I was listening to a podcast the other day about someone named Terrell Owens, and he used to be a wide receiver in the NFL, but of course he has a really bad reputation. And it was something about as he was walking out in the crowd, right? He's walking back into the locker room. People were someone in the fans said that Terrell Owens was cursing at them, right? But do you know why no one believes that fan? Because every person in the locker room knows that Terrell Owens doesn't swear. That's his life. Like, they've been with him every day. They've been teammates. Yes, he's a little bit nutty at times, but everyone knew he doesn't swear. He doesn't curse at all. So when the fan says, oh, Terrell Owens said you effing this, and this, all the players are like, no, we don't believe you, right? Were they there to hear what he said? And the answer is absolutely not. They weren't there. They weren't there to hear it, but because they have all the past history where they're like, no, we know Terrell Owens. He would never, ever say that. He doesn't swear. Then everyone is going to be like, oh yeah, no, there's no way he said that. There's no way he said, and they won't believe it, right? And in the same way too, when we're asked to believe, we're not asked to believe blindly. Actually, in most cases, we weren't even asked to believe. We realize the history. And when we realized, we chose to have faith and we chose to believe, and we had confidence in this history too, right? And now what's happening now is, with that choice that we made after listening to the word and then seeing all the amazing miracles that happens, why are we being asked to have faith and believe? We should already have it anyways. It's just because it's a difficult time. Many people are struggling. But that shouldn't be the reason why we stop believing, because it's difficult, right? This history that we're living in right now is a history of love. This is fulfilling God's purpose of creation of love. And love, love never gets tired. Love is patient. Love is kind. But another thing about love is something where it doesn't change regardless of how good or bad things are. Right? And I think, obviously people who are married would know this even better. When you're married, the love is there regardless. Look at your children. You love them regardless of how terrible they could be at certain times, right? We got to reach that level. That's where our faith should be. We shouldn't be like derailing from faith because we heard something. We have to understand it to that level. Like, we've heard enough. We've seen enough that we can trust. Just like all those football players, like, no, this guy Terrell Owens, he didn't say it. Why? He doesn't swear. We've been with him for years. We've never heard a curse word for him, right? So we have to be those that understand that we have to bear this fruit of love. That faith, that belief has to turn into love. And what's going to happen is, if we don't bear fruits of love, then the next thing that happens is frustration. If there's no fruits of love coming out, we eventually start getting frustrated by it, right? Because we're not acting on the word, we're not giving or receiving love, we don't see anything that we're satisfied with. But it's because we didn't take action on the word that there's no fruit that's born. Or we didn't do it until the end. So we took action for a little bit, we didn't go to the end, so in the end it didn't bear the fruit of love. Like, one thing that I agree with that comes from the word is, when you start doing things for your own purpose, it's kind of satisfying because you see immediate and tangible results. You know what? I'm not making enough money in Providence. I'm just going to get a job. You go get a full-time job anywhere, and guess what? Every 2 weeks, you're going to get a paycheck. Like, wow, I'm getting paid. You'll see immediate results. You'll be immediately satisfied because it's tangible in front of you. In the beginning, it's very, very easy to pursue your own purpose and be satisfied by it in the beginning because you keep getting these paychecks or you keep seeing something. But we have to realize too that the bigger the thing is, the more struggle is required. Right? Look at the Ambition Masterpiece, like 7, 8, 10 years to build that. Providence history to this point to have a firm foundation, 45 years. Jesus had to train Sons of Steve for 21 years, right? Yeah, if you just want to make some money, you know how easy it is? Just get a job, and every 2 weeks you're going to see the fruits of it. It's easy. But the bigger it is, the more important it is, the more meaningful it is, the longer it takes. The smaller things take a shorter time. And when you see what we're doing right now is to become the brides of God. It's not something that's done like, oh yeah, I've been in Providence for 2 years. How come I don't feel like that love? No, it's not. Becoming a lover of God, becoming a bride is not something you become, right? Being a bride is a lifetime thing. It's not like you get married on the marriage day, I'm a bride now. No, now you have to live as a bride, and the bride is going to live for the rest of your life on this earth. It's not a one-shot thing. It's a life thing. All your life, no matter how hard it gets, no matter how good it is out of love. But if you do it with love, one of the great things is love never gets tired, remember? It doesn't get tired. It keeps going. There's no like, oh, how long do I have to do this? Remember, Jacob worked for Rachel for 7 years, and he said it felt like a day. When you look at the way Sunseam lives, we don't hear Sunseam's sermons like, oh God, why is it like this? Why, this is your history, but why are you doing this to me? No, he doesn't complain about those things. His love for God pushes him through those moments. Sunseam knows the value of what he has. He knows the value of what he has to the point he is shocked by it every day. Right? Don't you remember that feeling when you realize this history, that feeling of shock that God called you? Right? That's the shock that Sunstein never lets go of. We came to this history by receiving Jesus who came back in spirit through the one he sent. By listening, believing, putting the words into action, we become brides. We receive the Holy Trinity as the bridegroom. And then we become counterparts of love. Right? And, one of the big key points of this history right now is, Holy Trinity, Jesus, they're all spirit. And they need someone to work through, someone at their level, someone that has to be raised at the level of Jesus, right? And that's why Jesus chooses and raises that person for 21 years. There's one point that was brought up in the message, which was really interesting, is like 2 + 5 = 7 came out in the Sunday message, right? 2 + 5 = 7. And then, it's the right answer. 2 + 5 = 7. And, but then, in the message is like, oh, don't believe, if anyone says this to you, don't believe it. But if Jesus says 2 + 5 = 7, which is the same answer, then believe with all your heart, will, and life. And it's a very interesting, it's an interesting thing to say, to hear, right? It's like, wait, it's the same answer, but why would I believe Jesus and not believe the other people? Well, one thing that I thought, like one of my realizations is like when people come with the wrong heart, people can use facts. People can use those things to turn you away. People can use facts and say, oh, I agree with this, but then they can con you. That's what a con artist does. A con artist, the one that doesn't love you, doesn't have that mindset to love you and protect you, is the one that will use facts so you'll trust them. And then after that, they'll lead you down a wrong path. And that's why don't believe other people, believe what Jesus says. But Jesus is the same thing. However, because you know that Jesus loves you with all his heart, will, and life, he's not there to con you. He's not there to bring you out. 2 + 5 = 7. Believe only what the Lord says, right? And we have to be those that realize this absolutely, right? There's one story that was brought up in the message is like someone asked Sunstein what 1 + 1 is. You know what Sunstein's answer was? Sunstein paused and he said, I would ask God. That is a powerful statement. Even though it's so simple, 1 + 1 = God. Oh, it's not God. 1 + 1 = 2. Sunstein said, no, I would ask God. Even for that. He didn't even answer just that simply. That's the difference between like Sunstein and us. Like how much he's thinking about God. Sunstein is so absolute, right? He even questions reality and leaves everything up to God, right? And we have to be that, we have to think about it in the same way. Let's not be deceived easily by others, right? And know that when you have someone like God and Jesus, they will never deceive us. So everyone, I talked about this in the beginning. We have, what's the last words that Jesus left for us for the end, at the end of the message? Drop your authority, look up to each other. Don't look down, look up to each other, serve in care, live humbly, and then drink the same bitter cup as Sunstein. Now, what does that all have to do with drinking the same bitter cup? Drop authority, look up to each other. Because when we drop our authority, we're loving everyone, even the people that are against us. And they're going to try to take advantage of us. They're going to say bad things about us too, but drink the same cup. That's what Sunstein's doing. He's loving his enemies. He loves them with all of his heart, praying for them. And we need to drink that same bitter cup by dropping everything and looking up to each other too. This is when the gospel, right? This is when the Holy Trinity will come upon us and work upon us. And that's why we have to be the people who are humble, the people who serve, people who consider other people's wrongs as our own and then repent for them. Even if they're coming against us, we must be compassionate, have empathy, help and pray for people. Help the poor, help those in need, feed the hungry. And if you've been doing this, you guys have been the faithful ones. It's kind of like what Jesus said. If anyone has done anything for the least of these, you have done it for me. Right? So, in the end, what's going to happen is this year will pass. We're already hitting June next week. It's going to pass. It's going to pass. And all who remain humble and steadfast will learn and grow. Right? It's all going to pass, and we need to be ready for what's going to happen next, right? What's the next step? And I hope that all of us can be here by the end of the year so we can do all these things together with the Lord. All right? So there it is, guys. That is today's word study of the Wednesday message. Hope it's something that you received a lot from. And I hope that if you have anything you want to leave in the comments of the things that you realize, go ahead and leave it there too. All right. So let's get into our second break.
I will remember the stories you and I have shared, like photographs, they're clear in my mind. I will remember those times became our history, and they're recorded in eternity. Now because of you, I can live without worry or shame, for my whole life has changed. The dreams that we have hoped for until now, the will that we have kept without a doubt, they become my soul's melody, the beautiful song my spirit sings, the days when we took action side by side, the blessings that have now become all mine. I will live eternally, recalling those moments vividly. La 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 la, la 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 la. La 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 la, la 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 la.
Okay, so let's get into our final segment for today on this Friday podcast, and also the last segment for the entire week. This is Daniel Baker over there in career at the moment. You know what? I made a mistake. He's 19 years old. I thought he was like 17, 18, just graduated from high school, but I guess he's perpetually in high school in my mind. But he called me, he's just laughing, like, I'm not 17, I'm 19 years old. I'm like, did you just graduate? He's like, dude, that was a year and a half ago. I was like, oh man, I have him perpetually as a child in my, but you know what, that's interesting because there's a lot of people that you've met them when they're really, really young and you only remember them as that young kid in high school or middle school. And it's hard for you to be like, oh my gosh, this person's like 25. This person's 30 already. So it's very interesting. But yeah, Daniel's actually 19 years old. He's a year removed from graduation. But as always, doing a great job. Please welcome Daniel Baker over there in Korea with Until the End.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the Do It Until the End podcast. Now, I want to thank everyone who's been praying for my family and for my father because he got surgery, which was, surgery is kind of scary. In any type of surgery, how big or small it is, surgery is scary. So thank you everyone for, praying for my father and praying for this situation. Now, I want to say this has been an also very interesting week because, I want to be perfectly honest. I was not motivated at all this week. So I started the week off. I played volleyball during Sunday, and after Sunday, I was very, I was preparing for the volleyball league in Provi, so my shoulder was a little bit worn out because I was spiking so much the previous day, and I kind of just felt like I didn't want to do anything within the day. So I think the first day I slept a good 12 hours. I think also a good reason was I was getting I got a shot for some kind of virus that I thought I had, but I got checked up in the hospital and I realized that I didn't have. So, I was getting a vaccination, so that vaccination it gave me a reason to sleep 12 hours. And after that I was like, wow, why am I not motivated? Why am I really struggling to get my motivation up? And one of the reasons why I realized that motivation comes to you when you work. So one of the big things that I learned from my father, and it is the fact that action creates emotion. Now, what does that mean? If you don't act, then, when you are still, you're sleeping too much. If you feel like you're not doing anything, you're not reading, you're just spending time and wasting time, you don't feel emotion, right? You don't feel the good emotions related to working out, doing the good things like reading books, praying. All of those quote unquote good things, they create a positive emotion after you do it, right? So what he told me and what he really made me realize this whole year was, when I sometimes I get down because there's these, I don't know why, but I have like this seasonal like depression. So like when there's lower amounts of lights, and if I don't get enough light, then I tend to become more depressed, I become more depressed if I don't go outside or if I don't get light. So one thing he was like, when I tell him like, I'm having these problems, I just don't feel motivated, he said action creates emotion, right? So staying still, staying indoors too much, he kind of realized, especially like for me, that it's not a good thing to constantly stay indoors for 5-6 hours. It's not good for me. So one of the reasons why I was giving you this whole story is because I want everyone to do something right now. And it's something that we're going to have to work on for the rest of our lives. And that is realizing and understanding ourselves, right? For long understanding viewers of this podcast segment, you guys know that this has been a big topic in the past, right? Getting to understand yourself. Because if you understand yourself, then you're able to do the right things in situations that may be difficult for you to decide, right? So, one thing you need to know about yourself, like let's give the example of dieting, right? What kind of person are you, right? I want to ask, what kind of person are you? Are you a person that has a very low body fat? Simply because you are burning so many calories, not because of like actions, but because your body naturally has a high metabolism, right? Are you that kind of person? Or are you a person that needs to work hard or needs to burn a lot of calories through action, through working out, to actually lose a considerable amount of weight? Now, for those people, dieting is very helpful because through a really good diet and a well-planned and, if you're disciplined and you realize you need to do this diet, then you'll be able to do and lose weight, right? But there's no one whole solution to your problems. It's kind of like a puzzle that you have to solve every day, right? Knowing yourself and understanding yourself is a puzzle, right? It's a piece of the puzzle where, you realize yourself, it's one piece, and that thing, that realization about myself, I was looking into it a little bit more and I realized something else, right? Those are the reasons why you want to get to know yourself and understand yourself, because if you understand yourself, you're going to make a lot more progress in your self-development. Now, this comes to the topic of this week, right? Start of the week, I was very not motivated. A good reason why was, I was spending 12 hours indoors. I was working out, maybe I don't know what especially happened, but I was very tired the next day. So I probably watched a lot of YouTube, maybe some Disney Plus shows at night. And when you get to know about your neuroscience and you realize that, high peaks of dopamine creates low troughs, and a low part, a lack of dopamine, then you realize that maybe, maybe those actions were not good for me. Maybe those actions were the cause of my, depression, slight depression, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, it to be honest, it feels like every week like this happens. Like I get a lot of grace from the Sunday service, then after a couple of days after, I'm very tired. I'm very, I have some negative thoughts, and one of the reasons why I feel like that's the case is either because I was too tired from Sunday, or I was working out too hard from volleyball or basketball or soccer. Those things compound for me to take a long, deep rest where I would sleep 12 hours, or, I'll, do actions where, just pass the time, like watching YouTube. And those things were the causing me the next day feel very tired and have those depressive thoughts. And yeah. So when you realize yourself and when you realize what kind of motivates you, then you're able to use that motivation to actually work and get out of that kind of depressive mental state. And yeah, I just want to say, something big happened this week. And yeah, I finally got a new phone. iPhone 14 Pro, 128 gigabytes. It's the like the most normal one you can get, but I really got a good deal, and it's the first phone I ever got new. And yeah, if anyone listening right now knows the feeling of either getting a new car, either getting a new phone, new tablet, new computer, you know that feeling where the next couple days, the next couple weeks, it feels like, because I was always in the past using very old hand down phones that I got from my family, right? And I finally got a new phone, and the feeling you get is like, it's like, oh, I was driving around a 2001 Honda, and suddenly someone gives me a Lamborghini. You're driving down the street and you just feel amazing, right? That's the kind of feeling I have right now. And yeah, that feeling, it kind of, I realize that I can use this feeling to implement really good habits, right? What kind of habits? Like waking up for morning service, right? When I associate using a really good phone with a different habit, with like going to morning service or waking up, I'm like, I feel really amazing, right? So like whenever my alarm wakes up at 4 a.m. when I use my iPhone, I like wake up pretty early or wake up pretty well, right? Because when you have this new feeling and you're able to associate it to one of the habits that you want to make, then it's a really good way to make sure a habit goes a long time. Because when you have a habit and you want to make it a long-term habit, you want to make sure that you have you can feel those positive emotions during those habits that will cause you to become more motivated to do the habit in the future. Yeah, so that's just what I realized. And what the phone I had in the past was like an LG thin V30, and that's like, I looked it up and it was only going for like $40 online. So one of the things what happened was the SS, in my church, they were always, whenever I take a photo or whenever I do anything like take photos or even just texting next to them, they'll say like LG is so bad, and then they'll like make it a part of my character. And it's kind of like a really fun way to make banter, but getting out of that banter, it felt really good. Yeah. And of course they're going to try to find some other way to make fun of me, but it gives me a couple weeks of this kind of like silence where I can just enjoy this new phone while getting closer and closer to the SS. Yeah, so that's the whole situation with me. And yeah, it's very important to get to know yourself, to solve any type of issues that you have. If you're having anxiety issues, if you have depressive issues, if you have any issues, it's a really good thing to get to know yourself. And it is, without just to hold this mental health discussion, even outside of the mental health discussion, there's ways to get to know yourself. Going to the doctors, making sure you get all your blood work done, or you're making sure that your livers or your kidneys are doing fine. Those are all ways to get to know yourself. So it's such an important thing to do, and it's something that I recommend that everyone listening right now starts to do. Now, that's all I have for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed this podcast episode. And to everyone who's going until the end, let's walk this path together. Peace out, guys. Bye bye. Also, I'll see you guys on the Man Cave podcast soon, maybe. Okay, bye bye, guys.
All right, guys, that wonderful episode, Daniel. And yes, he is coming. He came out in episode 2, I believe. Oh, he's episode 3. I think it's episode 3. He'll be coming out on the Man Cave. Just really thankful and happy that we have these active young members of this history And a lot of them are going to become leaders in, maybe not leaders in the church, but leaders in the industry, leaders in their work or whatever it is. But it's really hopeful to see all these young members like Daniel that are moving up like this too. Either way. So everyone, I hope you guys have an amazing and awesome weekend. I hope your weather is just as good as mine over here. We'll see you guys again on Monday. Everyone, don't forget, we have Poetry with Melanie over there in New Zealand for tomorrow's video. And then we'll see you guys again on Monday on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and feel your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop.